So just a quick introduction. This is Mei Ann, and she directed the first two pieces. Alfian Sa'at, who wrote Hotel, the middle piece. Ovidia Yu, who wrote the first piece. And Marc is at the back, who wrote the last piece, and the two last persons who directed Marcus's piece.
Sonia Nam.
And Sonia. All right, so I think we give them another round of applause. It's just so I'm going to start, and I usually start by asking the playwrights, how did they come about to write the piece that we saw this evening? I know that Marcus wrote this specifically for tonight, and I would love maybe to start with you, Marcus. Why did you choose to write that particular piece for tonight?
So I'm an immigration attorney, and I also just got my green card. So I was thinking, when people immigrate to a different country, there's something about a depth of a persona or personality or the relationship to the country. So I just wanted to explore the idea of a funeral of a country. So that's really how it came about. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, now it's a musical, and it has a lot of Singaporean elements. It has great songs. So how did you conceive that?
How did I conceive that? Well, I don't know. I had a sense of like what the audience would be like because I worked on the festival 2 years ago, and so I had a sense of like what the audience would be like. So I wanted to write something very specific to the audience, and most specifically for Singaporeans who are overseas, not necessarily Singaporeans who are based back home, because that perspective is very, very different from when you basically come from a country when you are the majority. Mostly. If you're ethnically Chinese, you mostly come from like a country where you're the majority, and then if you come here, then suddenly you're the minority. So like, how does that feel? And so that perspective, I just wanted to be able to delve a little bit deeper in terms of the people who are overseas, because I don't think that's really discussed in the like Singapore literary scene, because the people are mostly based there, and obviously that's their scene, those people, and those are the things that they want to talk about. But no one really has explored this area, so I thought it would be a nice change, just see what goes in here. Yeah.
Cool. And so let's talk about the two pieces that are not specifically written for tonight, and those are by the two playwrights who flew all the way from Singapore. Maybe we start with Ovidia. This piece was written a while back. So, how did it come about, and how do you see it in this surrounding?
Actually, it didn't have such a good origin story. It was written for Theatre Works at the time. There was a black box, and oh dear. There was a step ladder left over from the renovation equipment, so I put a woman on top of it and I think that's where it all came from, so I'm afraid it's not such a deep thing, but I tried to put in people I knew, and it was Jacinta who had to sit on the ladder
But it has gone to many places since, so how has it been received in different places?
Actually, I think a lot depends on the directors and how they work with it, because there's practically no stage directions apart from the raising of the woman. And I think the rest is just a play that it has to do with the relationship between the people and between the characters on stage. And I love the way you work too. Thank you.
Cool. So now we get to Alfian. This is a piece that was written for the last year Arts Festival in Singapore, and it's a epic piece. It's almost 5 hours. It has 11 scenes, over 100 years. How did you come about to write this play that has 9 languages and all these characters?
So last year in Singapore there was this thing called SG50, right? So Singapore is 50 years old. And we thought, fuck that. We're gonna do our SG50 play, but also to look at the 50 years before. Singapore's separation from Malaysia, which is taken as point zero of our history. So we thought, okay, we need to go further. We need to tell this story about 100 years Singapore history, because we can't understand who we are actually if we don't also understand the Malayan history, the colonial history, because there are lots of things that recur over time. So that's what we did, and since a commission piece, then go for broke, someone's paying for it anyway. So so we told the festival director of Kingston, we're going to do this, it's going to be very long, and it's a durational performance, and he said, why don't you split it up into 2 parts, which we did. We worked with 13 actors, and we devised some of the scenes. So the Japanese scenes were actually, we had really intense devising sessions. As part of the devising, we had to sort of show the shifts in Singapore, especially when it came to language. We had language classes. So there's a language class we teach English, and then 50s and 60s, during the time Malayanization of Singapore, we had Malay language classes. And during the Japanese occupation, we had one of the actors actually spoke Japanese, and he had his language class. So he's teaching simple words in Japanese. And then halfway through his devising, right? One actor put up their hand and say, Sensei, how do you say, that is my father's head on the stake?
Wow.
Yeah. Sensei, how do you say, please don't rape me? So, it was interesting as that evolved, and the sensei, he would answer, and after a while you realize that he would say, sorry, I forgot how to translate that, So it became about language and then forgetting, and I think that sort of fed into that scene.
So the next question is to Mei Ann. Specifically, I guess, for the 2 pieces, how, that are not written specifically for tonight, how did you choose to present it for the audience tonight?
Well, maybe I should start with why I chose them, because both of them have very large bodies of work that I could go into. And I think I've always wanted to direct Ovidia's play because I'd read it a while before, and I had actually assisted Alec Talk when he directed it in San Francisco. And I always remembered it as something that was Beckettian, there's so many different influences that I was like, oh, I just love this, but then it pushes it so much farther. So I had read a lot of different things, but I kept thinking, my God, this feels like such global imagination. And there's other pieces. I also particularly really love your queer work in Singapore, because I think it's so subversive and exciting. Both of you actually, that set there. And it was really a tough struggle. And I decided, because when I was considering Alfian's work, I was like, oh, I was like, well, I have so many of these to choose from. But then Alfian's work, I know a lot of my really good friends worked on Hotel, and they talked to me about it throughout, and it was such an incredible experience for them and for the people who watched it.
Yeah.
And it's such a landmark production. And when I finally got to read it, I'm still so mad I haven't been able to see it. But when I read it, I was so moved by its in-depth desire to understand this place through the people and their experiences. I found it incredibly touching and moving and necessary for me as a Singaporean to do. So I thought, how different these pieces are, and how wonderful to see them against each other. Where it's a completely different kind of imagination to go deep into one country's history, and what that feels like versus let's take this and over here and do that. So I felt like they were such an interesting combination of each other. And you should know, these playwrights write everything. It's not, you can't say that this is iconically their work, because their work is so iconic in so many ways. So I think that's why I chose those pieces. And then I knew that I could, that in Ovidia's piece, I could be very free with how I cast in terms of race and gender and all that. And so I thought, I had a moment where I was like, does Luwa need to be Chinese? I had that moment. I was like, well, she's a goddess. It starts with someone else. So, but I felt very free to say, and G had said to me, think of it like, if people could see it and say, wow, this could be done here. Why couldn't it be done here? And so I picked 2 fabulous actors that I know and love, and said, hey, let's chew on this together.
I love what you did.
Oh, great, great. And then for Alfian's, I felt like it was really, you know, it's so, it was so specifically, like, I just kept wanting to go back to it, even though it was like, well, it's not, you know, it's about the languages, it's about the not being able to understand each other. And I thought like, well, you know, I'm reading it, and I'm understanding everything, and what I'm understanding is how we don't understand each other, and then how we do. And I thought, the audience will get that, even though they're speaking the same language. They'll hear it the way I read it. And that was so powerful for me, so maybe it will be so powerful for them too, so.
Great, thank you. And this is, the next question is for Sonia. You know, being, I guess, the only non-Singaporean on this panel,
Yeah.
how was it, what was your experience working on a Singaporean piece?
I enjoyed working with Marcus. It was wonderful. The thing that when I initially read the script was the acronym. You guys use a lot of acronyms, so I got a little confused, and I was like, "What do all these things stand for?" The first thing Marcus says, "Don't worry about the Singaporeans will get it." Yeah, there are just so many acronyms. But you know, I enjoyed working with Marcus and the actors. They were fantastic. They sang beautifully. And it was a fun thing to, it's just interesting to me how, you know, as an American, and I live in New York, and it's pretty diverse here, thinking about another country that's almost just as diverse, and it's just, the culture is different, but I think some of the things are so similar but different at the same time. I feel like Singapore has a lot more rules than here, but the diversity that Singapore has is pretty great. And I'd like to visit there one day to see how different it is.
Don't break weed.
Well then, forget it. I'm not gonna go.
As far as we know, it's still there.
It's sinking though. So the next question is for everybody or whoever who wants to answer this question, which is, you know, the Singaporean artists, they are not just one thing, they are many things. You know, you are, you know, not just a director, you're a producer, you're an academic, you're a lot of things. Alfian, you are a playwright, you are a poet, you are many things. You write short stories, etc. Ovidia as well. And Marcus, I didn't realize you perform, and that's amazing. You know? So you know, you guys are all hyphenates. How did that come about? Is it a Singaporean thing? Is it a necessity? Is it a luxury? What is it? Who wants to start?
That's
I feel like this is a Singaporean.
Everybody was like that before. Doesn't everybody do everything?
I don't know, I think, I don't know, it's just incidental, I feel. I know there's an answer waiting out there which is about how this is like typically Singaporean overachieving or something like that, but I think it's just incidental. I also do know that there are artists in Singapore who just sort of stick to one thing and do it very well. So I think it's just, by accident.
I think it's a combination of necessity, bravery, and narcissism.
I just get bored. No, I get bored like thinking of one thing, so I like doing a lot of different things, actually.
Cool. All right, before we turn it to the audience, just one last question, which is, you know, what are you guys doing right now in terms of your work, and how do you see yourself advancing specifically Singapore theater, whether in this country or back home in Singapore?
Never start. Well, the next thing I'm going to be doing is basically running a new play lab. So it starts in October. We're going to get a bunch of playwrights in. I'm going to give them prompts, and the theme is immigration, because I just feel like it's such a big hot topic right now with like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and all that kind of thing. So I want to get a bunch of players together, write short plays, and just kind of like generate material about this, generate dialogue about this. And that really is the focus of my work. Like every time I write something, it's about, I'm either exploring an idea inside of me or an issue that's outside of me. So I don't really write Singaporean things. Like this is actually the most Singaporean thing I've ever written. And the rest of my plays are not like that. Or you can ask Sonia, she's like seen all of them, or been in them, or directed them, or something. So they're not really that Singaporean. But I think I bring that sense, right? Because you can't really leave your culture behind or divorce your history or something like that. So that perspective and that mindset always kind of pushes forward in everything I do.
For me, actually, in theatre, I'm moving away from theatre, I think, because I'm trying to explore the novel form, and it's hard enough trying to find time to read and to write and to watch Alfian's plays. So, so given all that, I think for me it's a step back, and I want to watch more and take in more and feed myself.
Since I didn't look at upcoming projects or things that are just in my head, right? I suppose researching the Japanese occupation has been one of those things that I stumbled into when I did hotel. So there's this story of a sort of Japanese Schindler, during the occupation. His name is Mamoru Shimazaki. And I've been researching, trying to tell that story because he saved around 2,000 Chinese lives during what is known as the Suqing massacre in Singapore. He gave them these passes that prevented them from being rounded. So Suqing massacre was when almost 10,000 Chinese men, civilians, were rounded up and just killed on the beaches of Punggol and Bedok and all that. So we don't really know about his story because I think this wartime history is all tied in with like victimization and the Japanese being the aggressors and all that. And I know it's going to be a tricky and potentially dangerous story to tell because I also don't want to sort of rehabilitate the image of the Japanese as the oppressors or whatever. And also, you also want to respect the memory of those who died during the war. But I because of this, I think as a writer, because it's going to be difficult and we're all masochists in some way, and you feel conflicted about it, this is a story you have to write and tell.
So I live here and I'm a professor of directing and dramaturgy at Hampshire College in Massachusetts. And I also direct here in New York. I have a show in November by a playwright named Christopher Chen. It's called The Late Wedding. It'll be up in November. So I'm doing a lot here, but I also am deeply invested in being a Singaporean artist. I directed a play by Jean Tay called The Shape of a Bird in January for the festival there, and we're talking about how to continue working on it in different ways. Those weeks where I got to work with dear friends and amazing actors like Han Ping Hua and Brendan Fernandez, who was in the hotel, were really thrilling for me to be able to sit around and talk about what is censorship really, what is freedom really, what's actually happening, what are we giving up, and what is worth giving up. And we had all those conversations, and I have to say that it was very meaningful to me to be home and to be doing that in my country. And I look forward to more of those opportunities. I also am very actively working with Colin Goh and Yan Wu on an adaptation of their comic book Dim Sum Warriors that will be produced in Shanghai next year. So I'm always a Singaporean, so it's great. I also work with Jeremy Tiagawa. So, yeah, and in the future I hope to work with Damon as well.
On that note, I'm sure there are lots of questions from the audience, so we're going to turn to you guys. Any hands? Yes? Yeah.
So I have a question for Alfian about translation. So I was kind of struck by the fact that the whole scene that you gave us was illustrating how neutral translation is not. And then you have to give it to the audience in translation. Like, does that make you uneasy? How do you feel about that?
Does that make me uneasy as in the way it was performed tonight? Is that what you?
Yeah, so both the way it was performed tonight and the subtitles, like in the, I guess in the directions there's
the
subtitles.
original and
Yeah.
the subtitles. Yeah, a little bit, because I feel I'm talking about the original production, right? And with subtitling. I was also a bit conflicted by subtitling, because you also don't want an audience to read a play, you want them to watch it. So it has to be, the placement's important, it has to be part of the frame of the whole mise-en-scène, right? But I also felt it was very important to have all these like different languages, and the fact that I don't know if you noticed, but each character actually only knows 2 languages, right? So the Matsuda is Japanese and English, and then the girl in the middle is Malay and English, and then the grandmother is only Malay and Japanese. So there's always one language missing. So there's that kind of intricacy, I think, that I really want to explore, and I feel that there will be gaps, whatever, but hopefully. I mean, it's a compromise. I think a lot of art making is about those kinds of compromises. Thank you. That's a question.
Next question?
Thank you all so much, and thank you to the directors and actors for just an amazing whirlwind of performances. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard and then so quickly been moved to tears. So thank you for a really magical experience. I was wondering if you could speak, any of you or all of you, to sort of how you think about time and history in your work. All of your comments sort of started to move in that direction, and it struck me that all of the plays that we saw tonight are in some way influenced by time or playing with time and history and the future and the present. So if you could talk a little bit about, as writers and directors, maybe how that idea frames your creative process, your writing, and the performances we saw tonight.
You've got the microphone.
I just spoke.
Okay, I'll just start. For me, history and place in history is very, very important. I also try to stress that the only moment that matters is the now. No matter how it's from here that you go forward as well as go backwards. But you only become aware of what you can do with the now if you know your history. And that opens up the future. So I try to put that in if I can.
So I wrote my piece, I said it in the future because I knew what the other pieces were going to be like. So I knew Alfian's was kind of set in the past, and woman is timeless, so I think it's always now. So I wanted something in the future. So that's why I did mine in the future. When I do my work, if I'm talking about something, usually if I have an issue or something I want to explore, I don't do it directly. I like to do it in a circuitous kind of way. So I did a show where it was a musical about Brian Shrimp, sea monkeys. Yeah, so it was set in a sea monkey tank, but it's really about religion. So I just like to go around and do things. And time is an interesting way of doing that. I love setting things in different time periods. And I think going forward, I feel, especially like an Asian person here, I need to reclaim history for other Asian and Asian American people here, because history here has been very, very whitewashed. And when you think about, the 1900s, you think, okay, surely there are no Asian people, but that's actually incorrect. Completely incorrect, because the first Asian people came here around the 1600s. So there's a huge Asian American history that's not even explored. So I feel like it's my duty now to go back and start digging up all these stories, basically.
Actually, I'm going to ask a question that's similar to that question to Alfian, which is, this play of yours spans 100 years. And how did you choose the different stories? Why those stories as opposed to other stories? Because it can be a lot of things, right? I know some of it may have been devised, but there must have been specific choices that were made.
Yeah, so the whole play takes place in a single hotel room over 100 years. And I guess the transitions through history, every time, the chambermaids would come in and clean the room, and then it became another decade. So because last year was 2015, so the play was between 1915, 1925, 35, etc. We also wanted to tell a history of people who were otherwise left out of the historical frame, including, so it's like a little people's history. We talked about the, what do you call them, the bondmates, for example, in 1925, who were speaking Cantonese on stage. We also talked about the Malay film industry in the 1950s. So we wanted to be particular that it wasn't a straight Chinese male kind of telling of Singapore history, because basically official Singapore history is straight Chinese male, PAP, Lee Kuan Yew history. So they really wanted to go away from that, tell stories of women and sexual minorities and Eurasians especially. They almost disappeared, in the Singapore landscape. I think mass exodus in the 70s, mostly to Australia, because they couldn't deal with the bilingual policies, which is actually a horrible policy if you come to think of people who don't really have a mother tongue, right? So yeah, Eurasians and also Peranakans. I think it's so sad that in Singapore these are the amazing syncretic identities that we developed, and then at the same time we try so hard to erase those, right? With this Chinese, Malay, Indian, others, almost fascist categorizations. Yeah, we're so scared of hybridity, and I think the play wants to say we are all mongrels, and we should celebrate that.
A quick add-on question, and I'll get to you, Mei Ann, which is, as a Malay playwright in Singapore, do you feel that extra responsibility to speak or to give a voice to the underrepresented?
I'm very cautious about this because I don't want to be the standard bearer, right? I don't want to be the spokesperson. So, but I'm glad that in theatre there's so many other Malay playwrights, Malay directors. Zizi Azhar, Malay director from Singapore, is behind there. A wonderful compatriot of mine. I don't feel like it's so much responsibility, but sometimes it's a burden. Because sometimes you want to move away from those topics. Sometimes you sort of don't want to be pigeonholed, like, oh, this is an Alfian play, it's going to talk about Malay things, or but yeah, it's something to, I think, constantly navigate through in Singapore.
Is it okay for me to go back to the time?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that question. It's an amazing question. My mentor, Anne Bogart, says that all we have to work with in the theater is time and space. And I think it's so powerful, and that's sort of how I think about things too. So in Alfian's piece, if you look at scene by scene, when did this happen? And the space is a hotel room. But it's not just space, literal space, it's also metaphorical space, poetic space. What does this space take in the imagination, right? So there's a lot of specifics there. In Ovidia's play, it's almost like no time, no space, or is it all time, all space, right? And then to look at all those qualities and shape it, and then lighting designers are amazing to help set that, and so are, set designers as well, to help do those things. What I really think about is the cost of time. So as time moves, what does it cost us? Or how it might heal us. So the layering of moment to moment, what happens to a character? What have they gone through? And watching the possible transformation of them with the choices that they make is in fact why I love the theater, because we're actually witnessing transformation in linear time, or not. It might be even outside of time, but we experience it in a linear way. And to be able to watch transformation gives us the potential to transform ourselves.
That's great. We have time for maybe one last question. There.
Thank you very much for this lovely evening. This question is open to all of you. So given each of your histories, upbringing, and biases, are there any topics that each of you feel that are currently inaccessible or non-comprehensible to you, and might you try to tackle that in the future work?
write something about African American slavery because I just have no context of it, and I just don't think that I would do that justice, no matter how much research I would do. I mean, that's the thing, so that's a really touchy thing, right? Like, can writers or playwrights talk about things that are outside their race and all that kind of thing? So, I don't know. So my personal thing is there are some things that I just can't touch because I'm just like, I don't have that personal connection, and if I don't feel strongly in my gut about it, I just can't do it. No matter how much research I do, it's just not gonna come out. It's gonna look like shit, basically. I'm like, what's the point?
I like what you said about it has to hit you in the gut. I think if something hit me in the gut hard enough, even if I felt I had no genetic claim, I would try to pick it up and do it somehow, even if I'm doing it from the point of view of someone who had no genetic claim.
That's such a strange hypothetical question. What is inaccessible or incomprehensible? Wow. Maybe a play in another language, you know? Maybe I'll write a Mandarin play one day just to fuck up people's expectations of me being just a playwright, you know? So, yeah.
Performed by Indians.
Performed by Indians, yes. And I think that's a wonderful thing about being in Singapore, right? That there are all these amazing possibilities that you can do to keep on challenging what being Singaporean means.
I don't do anything unless it's a little impossible. I'm just not interested enough. It has to feel like I would never know how to do this, and so I'm doing it. So right now I'm embarking on a new project I haven't talked about, but I'm gonna talk about it in public, so I'll do it, okay? I'm really fascinated. About 12 years ago, a lot of Nigerians went to Guangzhou, and from other African countries as well, but in particular a lot started to become traders there. And after they stayed for a while, they started to marry in with Chinese women, and they formed an area that they called Chocolate City there. And they have children. And I think, what is this new people? What is this new culture? What will happen to them? I know how racist Chinese are. I know what, I just want to know, like, I want them to survive and thrive and be the brightest lights possible. And I'm also very interested in that because I'm so sick of whiteness being centered in colonist narrative. I'm just so sick of it. I can't even deal with it anymore, right? So I'm like, can we please, can we look at ancient empires? When you think of the Chinese empires, and you think of, Egypt, and you think of the Forbidden City, you think of these incredible places, and then you think of the traders and that family there, now in Guangzhou. And I want to stage that. I want to look at history through that lens, to understand things in that way. Maybe we can't escape the sort of, the white lens, but I'm gonna fucking try, because can we please look at other ways in which to look at how humanity continues, and how we screw up each other, and how we love each other, and how we reach across huge things to find out that we might all be human. That's really exciting to me as a new project. So.
Thank you. I think, I really want to thank the whole panel. I think they've been so amazing. So let's give them a round.